Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. Jack leaned back in the chair, his eyes darting around the crowded conference room at NASA's international headquarters. Around him, a buzz of languages filled the air as delegates and scientists from various countries discussed the latest interstellar communication. Dr. Helen Choi, the head of the Interstellar Relations Division, tapped her glass to signal the beginning of the meeting. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began, her voice carrying a calm authority. "We're here to discuss a unique opportunity that has presented itself." Jack listened intently as Dr. Choi continued. "The Varnox, a civilization from the star system Gliese 581, have extended an invitation for a cultural exchange. This isn't just any exchange. They've proposed a marriage alliance to strengthen ties with humanity." Murmurs filled the room. Jack felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. A marriage? To an alien? Dr. Choi clicked the remote, and an image of a Varnock appeared on the screen. Their skin was a pale, translucent blue, with large, luminescent eyes that gave them an ethereal look. As you can see, the Varnocks differ significantly from us in appearance. However, they are highly intelligent and value emotional depth and cultural richness, Dr. Choi explained. Jack raised his hand, cutting through the hesitant whispers of his colleagues. Who will be marrying into their culture? How do you decide something like that? Dr. Choi smiled slightly at him. We wanted someone with a background in linguistics who is also adaptable and open to radically new experiences. Jack, we'd like you to consider being that representative. The room turned to look at him, a sea of expectant faces. Jack's heart raced. "Me?" he stammered, almost unable to grasp the weight of the proposal. "Yes, you. You've worked on the Universal Language Decryption Project and have shown a remarkable ability to understand and adapt to new cultural contexts quickly," Dr. Choi added. Jack took a deep breath, considering the gravity of the decision. "And who is the Varnock counterpart in this marriage?" "The princess of the Varnocks, Zara. She's been described as highly educated and deeply committed to her people's advancement." "Princess Zara," Jack repeated, trying to imagine the person behind the name and image on the screen. "Do you have any other questions, Jack?" Dr. Choi asked, her eyes locking onto his. 100, Jack half-joked, earning a few chuckles around the room. "But for starters, what are the expectations regarding this marriage? Is it symbolic, or are they expecting a real, functional marital relationship? It's intended to be a genuine bond, one that will foster deep intercultural ties and understanding," Dr. Choi explained. "You'll live on their planet, partake in their customs, and help bridge the gap between our worlds." Jack nodded slowly, his mind racing with the implications of such a commitment. "I need some time to think about this. It's a huge step." "Of course," Dr. Choi agreed. "Take all the time you need. This is a voluntary mission, Jack. We need someone who is fully committed." As the meeting adjourned, Jack was approached by his old friend and colleague, Dr. Lucas Bennett. "That's a hell of an offer, Jack. But if anyone can handle this, it's you." Jack smiled wryly. "Thanks, Lucas. It's definitely not what I expected when I came into work today." Lucas clapped him on the back. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Just imagine being the first human to truly live among the stars with a new civilization." Jack's gaze drifted to the starry simulation on the conference room's ceiling. Marrying a princess, living on another planet, becoming part of a story right out of the science fiction books he grew up reading. It was overwhelming but undeniably thrilling. "Maybe I will say yes," Jack murmured, more to himself than to Lucas. "Maybe this is exactly the adventure I've been waiting for." Jack's shuttle descended through the opalescent clouds of Varnock, the home world of his future bride. The view from the window was breathtaking. Vast oceans glimmered beneath swirls of cloud, and the coastline was dotted with structures that shimmered like jewels. Beside Jack, Captain Miles Edwards, the pilot and his primary contact during the mission, pointed to the approaching city. "That's Varhn, the capital." "Beautiful, isn't it?" "It's incredible," Jack replied, his face pressed against the glass. The nervous excitement was palpable in his voice. As they landed, a welcoming committee awaited them. The group was a mix of Varnocks and humans who had arrived in earlier exchanges. A tall Varnock, unmistakably regal, stepped forward. His luminescent eyes and serene demeanor stood out immediately. "Welcome to Varnock, Jack Anderson. I am Thalene, Chief Steward of the Royal House. We are honored by your brave decision to join us," he said, his voice resonating deeply, the universal translator rendering his words smoothly into English. "Thank you, Thaleen. I'm grateful for your hospitality," Jack responded, extending his hand as he'd been briefed. Thaleen nodded, understanding the gesture, and clasped Jack's hand with both of his. "This way, please. Princess Zara is eager to meet you," Thaleen said, leading them toward a sleek, floating vehicle. As they glided towards the palace, Dr. Eric Sullivan, another member of the human delegation, leaned towards Jack. "The first few weeks will be the hardest, getting used to everything. But you'll find Varnoks are incredibly understanding," he advised. "I hope so. I've done my homework, but it's one thing to read about alien customs, another to live them," Jack replied, his gaze fixed on the approaching palace. The vehicle stopped at a massive, glowing structure that seemed to be crafted from light itself. They were ushered into a grand hall where the walls pulsed with soft, rhythmic lights. "Jack, there she is," whispered Captain Edwards, nodding towards a figure approaching them. Princess Zara was unlike any human woman Jack had ever seen. Her features were strikingly unique: high cheekbones, a gentle jawline, and those large, expressive eyes that sparkled with an inner light. Her smile was shy but genuine as she approached. "Mr. Anderson, I am Zara. Welcome to our world," she said, her voice melodic and filled with a warmth that the translator couldn't quite capture perfectly. "It's an honor to meet you, Princess Zara." "Please, call me Jack," he replied, his heart beating faster as he took her extended hand. "I hope you will find Varnock to your liking," Zara said as they started walking. Her English was impressively fluent. "I'm sure I will." "It's a bit overwhelming, but in a good way," Jack admitted. "I understand. This is a significant change for you. We appreciate what you are sacrificing to be here," she said, her tone appreciative. They arrived at a room where a small feast had been prepared. As they sat, Zara continued, "We have prepared some dishes we thought you might find palatable to begin your transition." As they ate, a group of Varnock musicians played soft, ambient music. The sound was unlike anything Jack had heard, a harmonious blend of tones that seemed to resonate directly with his soul. "This is amazing," Jack commented, trying a dish that looked somewhat like a radiant blue salad. Zara smiled. "I'm glad you think so. Many humans find our cuisine challenging at first." After the meal, Thaleen excused himself, and Captain Edwards took over the tour. "Let's give you a brief look around the palace. There's a lot to see." As they walked, Jack felt a mixture of awe and curiosity. "How did you find your first days here, Captain?" "It's a lot to take in, but like Dr. Sullivan said, you get used to it. The Varnoks go out of their way to make us feel at home," Captain Edwards explained. They ended the tour at a balcony overlooking the city. The setting sun cast a golden light over the buildings, making them sparkle. "Tomorrow, we'll start your orientation, and you'll learn more about our work and how you can help," Captain Edwards said, clapping Jack on the shoulder. Jack nodded, his mind racing with all he had experienced. As he looked out over the alien city, he felt a surge of excitement for what was to come. This new world was his new home, and the adventure was just beginning. The morning of the wedding arrived with a Varnock sunrise, casting hues of lavender and emerald across the sky. Jack stood on the balcony of his quarters, sipping a local morning beverage that Eric had assured him was akin to coffee, but tasted more floral and far less bitter. Captain Edwards joined him, adjusting his ceremonial uniform. "Big day, Jack. How are you holding up?" Jack turned, offering a nervous smile. "Honestly, I'm still processing this whole thing. It's one thing to agree to marry a princess from another planet, and quite another to actually do it." "Understandable," the captain chuckled. "But you've got a lot of support. We're all here to make sure this goes smoothly." Dr. Sullivan arrived, beaming. "Jack, today you will officially be part of the Varnock family. Their wedding ceremonies are something else. Ready to dive in?" "As I'll ever be," Jack replied, taking a deep breath. Together, the men walked to the preparation chamber where Thaleen and another Varnock, Garlin, a cultural attaché, awaited. Garlin was to guide Jack through the ceremony's customs. "Jack, today you will wear the ceremonial robe of our people," Garlin explained, presenting a stunning garment that shimmered with the same bioluminescent glow as the Varnock's skin. "It represents the light of unity and understanding." Jack dressed with the help of his human and Varnock friends, finding the robe surprisingly light and comfortable. Garland continued, "During the ceremony, you and Princess Zara will exchange vows that we believe weave your spirits together. It's both a literal and symbolic binding." As they made their way to the venue, A breathtaking open-air pavilion, Jack's anxiety mingled with excitement. The pavilion was filled with a mix of human and Varnau guests, all murmuring in anticipation. Princess Zara appeared from the opposite side of the pavilion, her own robe a cascade of colors that reflected her status and beauty. Their eyes met, and Jack felt a reassuring calm. The ceremony began with Thaleen officiating. "We are gathered here to bind Jack Anderson of Earth and Princess Zara of Varnau in the sacred union of marriage. This union is not just a bond between two individuals, but a bridge between two worlds." Jack and Zara stepped forward, their hands joining over a small, glowing orb. Thaleen continued, "Do you, Jack, embrace Princess Zara, not only as your wife, but also as your guide and partner in this new world?" "I do," Jack affirmed, his voice clear and strong. "And do you, Princess Zara, embrace Jack as your husband, and as your equal and partner in both new and old worlds?" "I do," Zara responded, her voice filled with warmth. "Please repeat after me," Thaleen instructed Jack. "I bind my life with yours." "I bind my life with yours," Jack repeated, feeling the weight and sincerity of each word. Zara reciprocated, "I weave my spirit with yours." The orb between their hands glowed brighter, casting a gentle light over them. The crowd cheered, a harmonious blend of human claps and Varnau luminescent flashes. After the ceremony, the celebration moved to a grand hall where music filled the air. Jack found himself dancing a traditional Varnau dance, led by Zara, who laughed delightfully at his tentative steps. Dr. Sullivan joined him with a drink in hand. "How does it feel to be a married man, Jack?" "Surprisingly natural," Jack laughed, watching Zara mingle with guests. "I think I was meant for this, somehow." Captain Edwards clapped him on the back. "We're just getting started." "Here's to new beginnings, Jack." "To new beginnings," Jack echoed, his heart full of hope and curiosity for what his future on Varnau held. As the celebration continued into the night, Jack felt an overwhelming sense of belonging and acceptance, his earlier nerves replaced by excitement for the life he was starting with Zara. As the celebrations of the wedding wound down, Jack and Princess Zara retired to the private quarters prepared for them in the palace. The room was bathed in the gentle, bioluminescent glow of Varnau flora, casting a calming, otherworldly light. Zara turned to Jack, her eyes reflecting a mix of joy and nervous anticipation. "Jack, I hope tonight will be a beginning of true understanding between us," she said softly. "I hope so too, Zara," Jack replied, feeling a mix of eagerness and anxiety. "I must admit, I'm a little nervous. Your world is still very new to me." Zara smiled, taking his hand gently. "Let me show you something that might surprise you." She led him to a balcony overlooking the vast gardens. As they stepped out, she touched a panel on the wall. The bioluminescent light intensified, revealing intricate patterns on her skin that seemed to pulse with life. "Varnau's skin reacts to emotional and physical stimuli," Zara explained, watching Jack's fascinated gaze. "It's considered very personal and is usually hidden from anyone but family and close friends." "It's beautiful," Jack murmured, genuinely awestruck. "Earthling marries the ugliest princess in the universe." First night shocked him. He quoted the media's sensational headlines back on Earth with a chuckle. They got the shock part right, but they couldn't be more wrong about the rest. Zara laughed, a sound that filled the air with warmth. "I'm glad you think so. Many humans find our appearance unconventional." Jack reached out, his hand hesitating just shy of her skin. "May I?" Zara nodded, and as Jack's fingers brushed against her arm, the pattern shimmered with a new intensity. "It's like touching starlight," Jack whispered. "This is how we connect, Jack. How we share our feelings." Zara's voice was soft but filled with an emotion that the translator didn't need to convey. They spent hours on the balcony, Jack learning the subtle cues of Zara's skin and what each pattern could mean. The physical differences that might have been a barrier instead became a bridge to deeper understanding. Finally, they returned inside. Jack, in Varnau culture, sharing one's luminescence is akin to sharing one's soul, Zara said as they sat close together on the plush seating. "It's a bond we do not take lightly." Jack took her hands in his, the glowing patterns illuminating their joined hands. "Then I'm honored you'd share it with me." As the evening turned into night, they talked about Earth and Varnau, about their hopes for the future, and about the challenges they would face together. It was a conversation that drew them closer, not just as leaders of their respective peoples, but as individuals. Dr. Sullivan and Captain Edwards met the next morning for breakfast in the palace's dining hall. Jack joined them, looking more at ease than he had since his arrival. "How was your first night as a married man on Varnau?" Dr. Sullivan asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. Jack grinned, his face alight with a newfound understanding and respect for his partner. It was enlightening, to say the least. "I think we're going to make this work." Captain Edwards clapped him on the shoulder. "We had every confidence in you, Jack." "Yeah, but last night wasn't just about cultural exchanges or duties," Jack added thoughtfully. "It was about truly seeing and understanding each other. I think that's going to be the real key to our success here." "Sounds like the princess is going to be a great ally," Dr. Sullivan noted. "More than that," Jack replied, his smile deepening. "A great partner." Their discussion moved on to the day's schedule, full of official meetings and cultural sessions, but Jack's thoughts often drifted back to the balcony, to the glowing patterns on Zara's skin and the bond they had begun to forge. It was a revelation that promised a future filled with shared light and color. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity for Jack as he began his immersion into Varnau culture. Despite the rapid pace, he found solace in the quiet evenings he spent with Zara, exploring the depths of their emotional and physical connection. One evening, while walking through the luminescent gardens of the palace, Jack and Zara were joined by Captain Edwards and Dr. Sullivan. The air was cool, and the pathways glowed softly underfoot, illuminating their faces in the dim light. "I must say, Jack, you seem to be adapting well," Captain Edwards remarked, glancing around at the vibrant flora. Jack chuckled, "Thanks, Miles. It's a lot to take in, but having Zara as a guide makes all the difference." Zara smiled at Jack, her skin subtly shimmering in response to his words. "Jack is a quick learner, and he's shown great respect for our customs and traditions." Dr. Sullivan, carrying a small device for recording observations, nodded approvingly. "It's good to see such positive interactions. It bodes well for our continued relations with the Varnoks." They reached a clearing where a small group of Varnoks were gathered for what appeared to be a cultural demonstration. Garlin, the cultural attaché, waved them over. "Tonight, we are practicing the rite of sharing, an ancient tradition where we communicate our history through dance and light," Garlin explained, his tone both inviting and instructive. "Would you like to join us, Jack?" Zara asked, her eyes gleaming with excitement. Jack hesitated, feeling a pang of nervousness, but nodded. "I'd love to try." The group formed a circle, and Garlin began to teach Jack the basic movements. The dance was slow and deliberate, each motion meant to symbolize a chapter of Varnock history. As the dance progressed, Jack found himself becoming more in tune with the Varnock way of expressing emotion. His movements became more fluid, and Zara's presence next to him was reassuring. "This is quite a workout," Jack joked lightly, wiping his brow after the dance ended. "It's more than exercise," Garland said, joining them with a soft laugh. "It's storytelling, a way we keep our history alive." As they walked back to the palace, Dr. Sullivan spoke up. "Jack, your participation tonight was not only enjoyable, but also symbolically significant. It shows your willingness to fully embrace Varnock culture." "I'm beginning to understand that," Jack replied thoughtfully. "It's about more than just learning the steps of a dance or the words of a language. It's about understanding and sharing feelings and experiences." Zara took Jack's hand, her skin glowing warmly. "And you are doing wonderfully," she affirmed. Back at the palace, Jack and Zara continued their nightly tradition of sharing parts of their day and discussing their cultures. Tonight, they focused on the art of storytelling, comparing human literature with Varnock dance. "Storytelling on Earth often involves a lot of spoken or written words," Jack explained. "We have books, movies, and plays. What about you? Do you have something like books?" Zara nodded. "We do, but our most cherished stories are those we live out, like the dance you participated in. We believe experiencing the story physically and emotionally creates a deeper connection." "That's fascinating," Jack mused. "It's a more holistic way of experiencing a narrative." "Yes," Zara agreed, "and sharing these narratives with you helps me see them anew." Their conversation drifted into deeper topics, like the nature of memory and history, and how each culture preserves and honors these aspects. As they said goodnight, Jack felt a profound sense of connection, not only to Zara but to her entire world. He realized that every conversation, every shared experience was weaving him deeper into the fabric of Varnock life, just as their traditions had predicted. Jack's understanding of Varnock culture deepened with each passing day. His mornings were filled with language lessons and historical studies, while his afternoons were dedicated to understanding the political and social structures of his new home. Captain Edwards and Dr. Sullivan were constant companions, aiding in his education and adjustment. One particularly sunny afternoon, Jack joined Captain Edwards for a visit to a nearby city to observe a local governance meeting. The city, unlike the capital, was smaller and bustling with a more grassroots energy. "So, what's on the agenda for today?" Jack asked as they boarded the transport. "We're going to see how the Varnoks handle local governance." "It's quite participatory," Captain Edwards explained, adjusting his data pad. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Thaleen, who seemed pleased to show them around. "Today, you will see how we resolve disputes and plan for our community's future. It is an open forum, much different from your earthly councils." At the meeting, Jack was impressed by the civility and depth of discussion. Community members of all ages participated, each being given a chance to voice concerns and suggestions. The dialogue was rich with respect and consideration. "This is democracy in action," Dr. Sullivan murmured to Jack, who nodded in agreement. After the meeting, they met with some of the local leaders. One of them, a seasoned politician named Hargon, was particularly interested in Earth's political systems. "Captain Edwards tells me you have quite the variety of political systems on Earth," Hargon said, his tone both curious and inviting. Jack chuckled. "That's one way to put it. Yes, we have many systems. Democracy, republics, monarchies. Interesting. And do they all coexist peacefully?" Hargon inquired, genuinely interested. "Mostly, but not always without conflict," Jack admitted, explaining some of the complexities of Earth politics. "I see. Perhaps there are lessons we can learn from each other," Hargon mused. Jack agreed. "I believe there are many." The day concluded with a small dinner, hosted by the local officials. Conversations flowed freely, ranging from politics to culture. Jack found himself deeply engaged, learning more from these informal discussions than he had in formal briefings. As they returned to the palace, Captain Edwards remarked, "You're getting quite good at this diplomatic stuff." "I'm learning from the best," Jack replied, grateful for the mentorship. The next day brought another cultural dive. Jack and Zara attended a Varnok art exhibition, where artists used light and sound to create dynamic pieces. Zara guided him through the gallery, explaining the significance of each piece. "Art here is not just for viewing. It is to be experienced, to be felt," she explained. Jack was fascinated, particularly by a piece that used viewer interaction to change colors and patterns. "It's like the art is alive," he commented. "It is, in a way. It reacts, it changes, just like us," Zara said, watching his reaction closely. "That's a beautiful thought. Art that grows with you, changes with you," Jack reflected. Later, they discussed the potential of integrating human and Varnok art forms. "Perhaps we could have an exhibition on Earth, showcase Varnok art," Jack suggested. Zara loved the idea. "And maybe bring some Earth artists here. A cultural exchange of artists." Excited by the possibility, they decided to draft a proposal for both their governments. The project symbolized not just the union of their cultures, but also their personal partnership growing stronger. That night, Jack journaled about his experiences, realizing how much he had come to appreciate the Varnok way of life. His initial apprehension had transformed into admiration and affection, not just for the culture but for the people, especially Zara. Several months had passed since Jack's arrival on Varnok, and his integration into the society had exceeded everyone's expectations. His mornings were now often spent with Thaleen and other Varnok officials, planning various cultural exchange programs. One crisp morning, Jack and Thaleen walked through one of the more bustling markets of Urchin, discussing a new initiative. "We are considering establishing a joint educational program," Thaleen explained, gesturing animatedly with his hands. "It would involve both Varnok and human educators." "Your thoughts, Jack?" "I think it's a fantastic idea," Jack replied enthusiastically. "Education is a great bridge. What subjects are we thinking about?" "Language, history, perhaps some arts and sciences," Thaleen pondered. "The aim is to foster not just knowledge but understanding and respect." As they talked, a group of Varnok children approached, their eyes wide with curiosity. They were on a school trip, and their teacher, a kindly older Varnok, introduced them to Jack. "This is Jack Anderson. He comes from Earth," the teacher said, her voice warm and welcoming. "Hello," Jack greeted, crouching down to their level. "I'm learning a lot about your world. It's very beautiful." The children bombarded him with questions about Earth, their voices overlapping in excitement. Jack laughed, answering their questions as best as he could. Thaleen watched the exchange with a smile. It seems you're becoming quite the celebrity, Thaline joked as they continued their walk. It's all part of being the first Earthling married to a Varnau princess, Jack quipped back. Their next meeting was with Captain Edwards and Dr. Sullivan at a nearby cafe. The group settled around a small table, sipping on traditional Varnau beverages. So, how goes the cultural ambassador role? Captain Edwards asked, a twinkle in his eye. It's more rewarding than I anticipated, Jack admitted. And the personal connections make it truly special. Dr. Sullivan nodded. That's good to hear. It's important for our long-term relations that you're seen as part of the community, not just an outsider. I've definitely started feeling part of something here, Jack said, his mind on the genuine relationships he'd formed. Later that day, Jack and Zara spent the evening at a local community center where they were to speak about their marriage and its cultural implications. As they prepared their notes, Zara leaned over and whispered, I never thought I'd be doing something like this. Speaking in public or marrying an Earthling? Jack teased. Both, Zara laughed. But it's turned out to be wonderful. Their talk was well received, with many Varnoks and humans alike asking insightful questions. It was clear that Jack and Zara's relationship had become a symbol of unity and mutual respect on the planet. After the event, as they walked back to the palace, Jack felt a sense of contentment. Today was a good day, he mused aloud. It was, Zara agreed. I think we're making a real difference. I do too, Jack said, squeezing her hand. And I'm proud to be doing this with you. Their conversation drifted to plans for the future, both for themselves and for the joint initiatives they hoped would continue to foster peace and understanding between their peoples. As they reached the palace, the setting sun cast a warm glow over the gardens, and Jack realized how much he had come to love this alien world. It wasn't just an assignment anymore. It was his home. And as he looked at Zara, he knew that she was the main reason for this profound connection to Varnau. 1 year had passed since Jack's arrival on Varnau. The anniversary of his marriage to Princess Zara was being celebrated with a grand festival, blending Earth and Varnau traditions in a vibrant display of unity. The palace grounds were decorated with streams of light and fabric, the air filled with the sense of both Varnau and Earth cuisines being prepared. Jack walked alongside Thaline through the bustling preparations, reflecting on the year's achievements. It's hard to believe it's been a year already, Jack remarked, watching as a group of Varnau children practiced an earth dance. It has been a year of monumental progress, Thaline agreed. Your marriage has become a symbol of hope and cooperation. Look around, these celebrations are proof of your impact here. Jack smiled, his heart swelling with pride and affection for his adopted home. I feel incredibly lucky to be part of this. As they approached the main stage, Captain Edwards and Dr. Sullivan joined them, both dressed in a mix of Earth and Varnau attire. Jack, ready to give your speech? Dr. Sullivan asked, clapping him on the back. I think so, Jack replied. Though it's more of a thank you to everyone here, especially Zara. You'll do great, Captain Edwards assured him. Everyone's excited to hear from you. The festival began with music and laughter, community coming together in celebration. When it was time for his speech, Jack took the stage, Zara by his side, her hand in his. The crowd quieted, their attention turning to him. Thank you, everyone, Jack began, his voice steady and clear. A year ago, I stepped onto this planet as a stranger, but today, I stand before you as a member of your community, your family. This journey hasn't just been about two people from different worlds coming together. It's been about all of us learning from each other, growing together. Zara squeezed his hand, her skin softly glowing in response to his words. I've learned so much from you all, Jack continued. About courage, about compassion, and about the incredible power of understanding and respect. My bond with Zara and with Varnau has changed me in ways I could never have imagined. The crowd responded with cheers and luminescent flashes, a Varnau sign of approval and joy. Jack turned to Zara, his eyes filled with love. Zara, this year with you has been the greatest adventure of my life. Thank you for being my partner, my guide, and my best friend. Zara, moved by his words, replied in her gentle voice. And thank you, Jack, for embracing our world with an open heart and an open mind. I look forward to many more years by your side. The crowd erupted into applause as the couple embraced, a perfect symbol of the unity that had grown between Earth and Varnau. After the speeches, the festival continued with a dance that now included a new tradition, a dance that Jack had introduced from Earth, adapted and adopted by the Varnoks. Jack and Zara led the dance, their movements a seamless blend of their cultures. As the night wore on, Jack found Thaline and his friends, their faces alight with joy. "You've done well, Jack. We're all very proud of you," Thalion said. "Thank you, Thalion. I couldn't have done any of this without your support and guidance," Jack responded, feeling a deep gratitude for the friendships he had forged. As the celebration wound down, Jack and Zara walked hand in hand back to the palace. The stars overhead shone brightly, a silent witness to the deep bonds that had been formed and the bright future that lay ahead. "This has been a beautiful year," Jack said quietly, looking at Zara with a smile. "Yes, it has," Zara agreed, leaning her head on his shoulder. "And many more to come." As they reached the palace, the couple paused, looking back at the lights of the festival still glowing in the distance. They knew that whatever challenges and joys the future held, they would face them together, supported by a community that had come to cherish their union as a symbol of lasting peace and mutual respect.